Hello. I am sitting in the car and I have nothing else to do, so I'm there to talk a little bit about writing because I love writing. So, where do we start? I don't know. I don't know where we start. I don't know what we should start with a topic on writing. So, yeah, let me think. Hey, why not we start with love interest? I mean, I love this topic. I see a lot of people who don't like this topic nowadays. A lot of people who are sick of love interests in stories, but I absolutely love it. So let's talk about it a little bit more. So, love interests. In a story, you want to have a little romance. You want to have a little love interest. That's awesome. So, let's figure out how to do this. I find the best love interest do one specific thing that I do not see people talk about often, and that is enhance the qualities of the main character or the side character, whoever has this love interest. I don't see this talked a lot about. I hear people talking about making sure your love interest has good chemistry, whatever that means. A lot of times it's difficult to good chemistry is like a very hard thing to pin down. You think people are going to have good chemistry and bam, they don't. You talk about love interest being necessary to the plot, you talk about the love interest being likable, you talk about all these different things, but you don't really hear a lot of people talk about love interest enhancing the qualities of the other character. But that's something that bothers me a lot in media. A lot of times you'll have this third wheel effect, where when the love interest comes into the screen, the main character start acting like a completely different other character, or all of his good qualities just kind of fall apart because the love interests are good at them, because like, oh, look at, she can kick butt too, great, feminism and all, but now you've made this super cool guy character not cool anymore when his girlfriend's around. And so you kind of just feel like, this guy who was once this really cool character we enjoyed is no longer that character. He's somebody else when this character's around, to make this love interest seem cool and likable. Which, I mean, it's a good thing to try to do that in writing. I never try to make a character likable. Instead, I just try to make them real. Try to capture real people around me. And a lot of times that means capturing the imperfections of people. But that can make them really likable for our audience because we recognize them as real instead of some kind of fake thing, or fall into a Mary Sue kind of way of writing. Even though Mary Sue as a trope, it's hard to pin down exactly what that means. I like to say it's a character that bends the plot to glorify, or, sometimes make them miserable in some cases. But anyway, going back to what we were saying, love interest. If you can find a way of crafting a love interest alongside crafting your other character, it can be very helpful. Instead of having a character pre-existing in your story and then try to throw a love interest in there. Now, you can do that. Not saying you can't. But crafting them at the same time can help you balance out things. Something you have to understand is you want somebody very different to your main character. And in this, you want to puzzle piece them together. There's a Rocky quote about this, about, I forget exactly how it goes, but he talks about him being a puzzle piece with his love interest. If you can do that, where when the love interest is around, the love interest enhances his or her qualities, and also the main character enhances his or her love interest qualities, then you can craft a beautiful friendship that people will be engaged with because they're enhancing each other. They're making each other funnier, smarter, better at things, and they're also, growing. And that's what real relationships are, or should be, You make each other better instead of, just having sexual attention, which many writers lean on sexual attention because it's pretty not easy to write, but it's kind of like the candy of writing. And so if you can lean on sexual attention, you don't need to write an interesting love interest. But it can be much more dynamic and interesting, and a character that stays with you and you want to learn more about when you craft it with a personality that enhances the other character. You also want to have the love interest able to call out the other character. Sometimes you see this where the love interest just kind of like a Lancer. You see this with Lancers sometimes. be opposing of everything of the main character. That gets really annoying. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying have a love interest that's able to not just always gush on the main character, and the main character doesn't always gush on the love interest. Sometimes they're gonna butt heads. Sometimes they're gonna be rough. Now, different relationships are all different. So, take, for instance, one of my characters. Penelope and Christopher, their love interest story is pretty smooth. They don't fight often because they're both very agreeable, but they do butt heads in certain ways. Significantly, Christopher, and in one area of the plot, he kind of falls into this vengeance mindset almost, and she has to call him out on that, and he has to call her out on her self-hate issues. But then if you take another character, I have two characters, I'm trying to think of a few. I have two characters, what are their names? Oh yeah, I got two characters, Elizabeth and I don't think this guy's got a name yet. I think John? Possibly John? I'm not entirely sure what his name is. His last name is Brown. They actually physically fight. Not in a bad way. Not in an abusive way. That sounded bad. But, I mean, they fight much more often. But that's because they're both more on the line of disagreeable people. That's not necessarily a bad thing. It makes them very interesting because they're able to call each other out on things, and they trust each other much more because they know that if this character was to do something wrong, the other character would be there to say, yeah, no, that's not right. And so they can feel like they can trust each other, you know, and learn and grow from each other. So you want characters that make each other better. A significant thing I saw, Trope Talk, Red Sarcastic Productions, Red has this show called Trope Talk, which I am addicted to. It's like heroin. Get into my veins. Along with Hello Future Me, I just watch those way too much. But one of the things she says is about love interest. Show them having fun together. That's important too. A lot of times you think there needs to be these dramatic moments, but show them just having fun together. Show them, especially if there's, in a series where there's a lot of actions and a lot of battles, it can mean a lot showing who they're spending their downtime with. Who are they hanging out with and having fun with? If you show that in a love interest, it shows that this character wants to have fun with this other character. When you are in a romantic relationship with somebody, you enjoy hanging out with them. You enjoy having fun with them, and you wish they were at certain events that you're at. And if they're there, you're excited. That doesn't mean you have to be with them all the time. A lot of time you need your own time, and your character needs his own time or her own time. But show them just hanging out, you know, or their own time. Show them just having fun and show how they enjoy their presence. Because sometimes you can just feel like, why are you guys together? You guys have nothing in common, or you guys just don't like each other. You know, it feels like the plot is just trying to mash these characters together when they are not clicking well. It can be much more dynamic to show the areas where they do mesh together and areas that they don't. Because in every relationship, you're going to have some of those. I think important idea to keep in mind is, instead of trying to write a romance, instead of trying to write knowing that, oh, these characters are going to have a future, just try to write a friendship. That's one of the interesting things about writing. Some of the best ships in writing are two characters who are not romantically interested in each other in stories, but had such a strong friendship that you just said, oh, these characters need each other so much. I think a significant one is like Frodo Baggins and Sam. I am so behind in my Lord of the Rings. I'm working through them. I'm not finished yet. Don't judge me. It's a good series. It's good. Anyway, they have a strong friendship, and the internet loves shipping them. Now, it might just be the internet, but it is a good ship. They need each other. The whole, him carrying him on Mount Doom and all that kind of it just hits you, you know? And there's a lot of different stories that have really just characters that are just there for each other, and you just love their friendship, and it's so engaging. And so it can be a lot easier to write with your goal to create a really good friendship where you can see these characters needing each other, and then add the romance instead of shooting for romance. Because when you shoot for romance, you kind of put this red flag that your audience thinks, oh no, this is going to be a romance, and I've seen this a million times before, it's going to be cheesy and boring, and I'm not going to like it. It could be much more interesting to introduce it as a friendship. And in my opinion, that's how it happens in life. First of all, before I say anything else, that's how it happens in life. You become friends with somebody and you're like, oh, this person's really cool. And then you turn around and you're like, oh, I think I want to marry this person. Yeah, that's how it goes. So create a friendship first. Create the basis of a friendship. And even if you're not sure if they'll end up together, lots of people are a little bit more architect writers versus discovery writers. The difference being having stories fueled by plots and events, and there's a spectrum between them, but this architect writers build with their plots, and they build like an architect bottom up, and they create the stories, and then they fill it with characters, and they know when everything's going to happen, and they build that onward. Discovery writers, and this is where I land into, have characters, and then their characters have interactions, and then the story goes. And so discovery writers tend to have much more dynamic characters, and they're interesting characters and interesting relationships, but the story doesn't have like a clear end. They can struggle with endings because it just keeps going, because there's you're not planning out the structure of the plot very rigidly. When you have a architect writer, you have the plot structured very rigidly, and this is much more what my brother falls into. But they can struggle with creating characters that don't just feel like cardboard cutouts, because they just kind of flip through all these different sceneries, and it doesn't feel like the characters are actually going for the plot of their own accord. They're just kind of thrown into it, and oh, now they're here, oh, now they're here, oh, now they're crossing the threshold, instead of feeling like they have these passions and desires taking them to, the end of the story. So, anyway, that spiel was to explain characters in general, and discovery writers and architect writers. It's good to keep in mind which one are you. And if you are an architect, learning how to write characters first, and learning how to create interesting, and getting better at that, because it's less of learning but just kind of creating a sense of how to capture real people in writing and how to make people interesting, can help you a lot with romances. When you're a discovery writer, it's good to know to take a breath and not have to plan out everything. You don't have to figure out these characters have to be together. You can just see if it works, and if it doesn't, it probably helped your main character grow in some areas that they'll need later in the plot. So you can mess around with things and see if it would be good. Obviously, there's more I can say about that, because there's so much interesting about discovery and architect. But this is a video about love interest, so I want to stick on the topic of love interest. Now, I think the important thing to keep in mind is that every relationship kind of has its own feel. You want to create almost this enduring kind of way of talking. And I'm not specifically talking about flirting. It can be really jarring when a character goes out of character to like flirt or have interactions with its love interest. You don't want to change their way of talking to make it so that they, oh, now they're in a love romance. You can tell because they're saying goo ga gaga, they're using baby language. But that can create a really jarring feeling. It's like, oh, this is not the character anymore. You don't want to pull the character out of character for the sake of a plot convention. Instead, you want to see how this character talks originally, and how that other character finds that, super intellectual, super cute, super just something they adore in that. So to take for instance, I'm trying to think of characters I have. Oh, okay, so I have two characters, Griffin and Daniel. Griffin has this kind of negative way of viewing the world. He is not particularly passionate about things. He's passionate about how awful the world is. And granted, his world is pretty awful because he's on a desert planet that's not very fun, with a legal system that sucks. And he feels like it's just a complete dump and everything's awful. Danielle has this way of seeing the world where she's very passionate. She sees the beauty of things. And it would seem like that would be bad. But what happens is he really adores her ability to see the beauty in the world and capture it in art. He finds that amazing. And she finds his yearning for justice in the world very something she wants to help. Now that's an interesting idea right there. I need to say something about that. A lot of times in stories, romances are made to make the characters have fun. You know, this is a romance because it makes them happy. I'm so glad that they're happy. But there's a deeper aspect to romance and relationships in life and in stories. They're not just there for personal happiness. They're there because they help you forward your vision in life. And I know that sounds weird, but all of us have a mission in life. Mine is to create stories and connect with people. And so what I'm looking for in a partner would be somebody who also either has that vision or wants to help me with that vision, and who would sacrifice things, and who has a vision that I would love to sacrifice things for. In good relationships, healthy relationships, both people have something in life they want to contribute. That might just be they want to be the best plumber in the town. That's great. That's wonderful. It might be they want to be a mother. That's wonderful. It might be that they want to go into the Navy. They want to be the next pop star. I don't know. They want to be a veterinarian. They want to be a dad. Whatever it might be. They probably have several. If they can find somebody who finds that awesome and has things that they want to be, and that person finds that awesome, they can be not just a couple that are happy, but a couple that are adding so much to the world. And that type of life is a type of life that will return itself. Much like art, how you create art, people will create art from that, will be inspired from that. People that just give to the world, people will be inspired by those people. People will be blessed by those people. We need more people like that, with missions to help people. So anyway, going back to how this goes into writing, if you have visions for what your characters want in life, not just what they want to make them happy, writing is more than that. A lot of modern writing, and this is my little nick with modern writing, it's about, oh, these characters are sad, oh, look, now they're happy. I just feel that's so weak compared to what could be in stories. Stories are more than just making a character happy. Stories are about this character having this passion and pursuing it and learning how their passion in some areas needs to be, better understood, and fighting for something, We're all fighting for something in life. And having characters, hey, this is a great example. I got my Naruto headband on. Let's go to that. Naruto, he wants to be Hokage. That's his big thing. He wants to be the big ninja leader of all the ninjas, because then people will finally see him as not a monster, but instead as a good ninja. And throughout the story, he learns more than just wanting to be a good ninja, and he learns more than just, oh, this is how you be a good ninja. He also learns that he wants to help people. He wants to be a good leader, not just for the sake of people no longer seeing him as a monster, but because he wants to help people, help the shinobi world. He wants hate and pain to pain, but hate amongst the different shinobis. He wants to help heal that. He doesn't want the way he was treated to happen to other people. And so that makes him a very strong character. And it makes kind of, in taking love interest, looking at his love interest, Hinata, she sees that part of him, that part of him who wants to stand up for the weak. You see this in the flashback where he stood up for her, and she admires that. And that's something she wants to give. A lot of times people in the modern culture see females wanting to help male partners as like weak, or like, you're stronger than that, she's an independent woman. I don't think so. I think that is one of the most awesome things. If you have a vision and you find a guy who also has a vision, or has a vision of his own that you think is so great that you want to sacrifice things for, that's so cool. That type of love, like I said, will return stuff. If you find a guy who you are willing to give to his vision and help him with it, and he's willing to do that for you, then you guys are a power couple, And so I think that's important to write and keep in mind in stories, having a love interest that goes both ways, where they both have things that they're passionate about and that they have maybe comes from scars in their life, because many times we go through hard things, and through going through those hard things, we create these passions. For instance, I love writing, and I'm dyslexic. Severely so. There's an example of my dyslexia. I have trouble with speaking, and have trouble with spelling, and it took forever. My mom seriously considered that I would not be able to read because of my dyslexia. So, understanding that, wait, what was I saying? There was an example of my ADHD. So, but from that, I have learned how to read and write and talk. And I have a passion for writing now, It comes from the scars of, not being able to read and write. And now I just have such a passion for it. I want to help people write, and I want to write for people. And I want to write for people who had struggled with reading. And I want to make known the struggle of reading and help people with that, Bring a voice to that and make good writing in the world. That's a strong passion of mine. And it's funny because it comes from a scar. So you probably have those in your life, areas where you're passionate about something, but it's because of some kind of struggle in your past. And thinking about writing, it's important to keep in mind in that when creating characters. It can make them much more interesting. Not saying that's the right way to do characters, because there is no rules in writing, because it's an art, and art has no rules. You learn the rules so that you understand certain things, so then you can break the rules, You understand, okay, this is how it affects an audience. What happens if I break that rule, and how will the audience react? And it's trial and error and figuring out things. That's art. So, just on keeping that in mind. When writing characters, you can make them really interesting and make love stories really interesting when you consider what scars might create passions and how those could intertwine. Let me make sure I'm not running out of battery. Okay, I have 8% battery, so I'm going to finish this up real quick. So, I'm probably going to have more videos about this because I love this. But keeping in mind that we're creating a couple that have, with some things, I'm forgetting everything, that make each other better, that have good abilities to call each other out when they're getting into unhealthy mindsets, that have these things in their past that create these passions, or just have passions in general. It might not have come from a dark place. It might just be a passion of theirs. And more than passion, like a mission in their life. Because passions, come from inspiration and can be emotion. But missions are things that you don't always feel like doing, but you want to do. And so, when this character doesn't want to do this thing, but it's their mission in life, this other character can help them, can sacrifice them, and can call them out and say, you need to do this, even though you don't feel like it. And that can create a much more interesting love story, because it's not just about happiness and making them feel happy. It's no longer about getting to the sex scene or trying to get them married, or will they, won't they drama. Instead, it's a much more healthy relationship where you like seeing these characters together. You wish that they're in scenes together because they make each other better and they create conflict and also interesting progression in the plot. They do not stall the plot so that they can have a sex scene and then move on. Instead, they move the plot forwards through their interactions and making each other better, getting to the big thing. Like, I think that's how Brandon Sanderson says it, the big thing in the plot. You know, you feel like there's progression because the love interest and the character who's in the relationship are pushing each other, you know? So, anyway, I'll have more videos about this because this is something I love. Stories in general, and people and love interests and romance and all that kind of stuff. But that's just my quick kind of spiel. I wish you the best on creating all your love interests and have a lot of fun. Writing's supposed to be fun. So have fun, push yourselves, and get better at your craft. Wish you all guys the best day, night, or whatever time it is where you are. And yeah, have fun.